How's everybody doing?
Yay, so good.
Yeah, glad to
Awesome.
be here.
Thanks. Thank you so much for joining us. Kelly, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'd love to. Well, my name's Kellie Martin, and I'm the founder and chief sommelier at SommSchool, which is all about empowering you to confidently raise your glass through wine classes, corporate events, and wine retreats in Europe.
Oh, awesome.
Cool.
Please take me away now. um, so let's start with an easy one for you. When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, that's a good one. I wanted to be an Olympian, an equestrian Olympian. So I rode horses growing up. I did the hunter jumpers. And so, back when you think you can be the best in your sport, back in that phase of life, I was like, I want to be an Olympian.
I had that too for swimming, right there with you.
Yes.
That's
Yes. And you
awesome.
realize that's never going to be in my life.
Nowhere near good enough, but it's okay. Yep, that's all right. That's all right. Very few people make it to the Olympics, right? But
That's right. That's right.
cool for us anyway. We're Olympic hopefuls.
Ambitious.
And that carries over, right? So what are some of your core values in business or life?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I think a core value is to always prioritize people, so versus prioritizing anything. So it starts with my family, prioritizing them over my business, and then within my business, prioritizing my clients over sales. That kind of mentality, I think, is fundamental to how I operate. And then another value is, I don't know if it's a core value, but I'd say getting outside. We live in Colorado, and so prioritizing being able to hike and fly fish and ski depending on the season, but making space in life to be able to get outside, which is one of the benefits of working for yourself, right? Is that I can flex my schedule so that we can get out during the day and then work at night. I work a lot of nights, so making that work for us is another good thing.
What is some of the worst advice you've ever received?
The worst advice. I don't know. That's a good one. Probably you can be whoever you want to be, right? It's not true. I was never going to be an equestrian Olympian. I think that's something we hear a lot. You can be whoever you want to be. You can be, but not really. You have certain skill sets. And so I think figuring out what your true skill sets are, and then, where your passion meets your skill set, that's the realm of you can be whatever you can want to be, but not I was never going to be or a swimmer. I would never, so I think that's a little bit of a gut check often and not what we hear a lot, but I don't know.
So
I don't know that that's
interesting.
True. Yeah.
I do love that. I've never thought about it from that angle before.
Me neither. Yeah. How about we change it to who you already are is great.
Yeah, I
Just
like
be who
that.
you are.
Yes. Yeah. I like that. Who you are.
So what were you like as a kid?
I was very outdoorsy, very driven, very ambitious. I again grew up riding horses, and so lots of days working to make that possible. I worked at the barn that I rode for, and just love to be outside and ride my horse and help other people ride. I taught riding from a young age, so
Very cool. What is one thing that would move the needle forward in your business right now?
More time. If I had more time. I have 2 young kids. I've got a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, and so it's always balancing how much time I can spend working and also being present with them. But I think, there's 15 things that I would do if I had more time to do them. And so I'm always balancing what's the priority to get done today, which is good. It helps keep me focused in my business because I can't do everything. So I have to be very committed and focused on whatever I am going to do. But I think time would be game changing to have unlimited time. Sometimes I think, wow, if I had all the time in the world, I could do so much work wise. But then I think it's maybe good not to have all the time in the world. So
yeah. What was one of your biggest fears in business that you had to overcome?
That fraud feeling, am I truly legit? I know my stuff, but do I really know my stuff? And what if somebody asked me? A lot of what I do is live. And so I open up the floor all the time for question and answers. My classes and corporate events are very interactive. And so there's always that fear. I just got back from, I was one of the featured experts at Big Sky Wine Classic out in Montana. And beforehand, I was like, what if somebody asked me a question I don't know and I'm, up on the stage, and if I don't know something, and you just take a step back and realize, like, I'm not Google. I'm never going to know everything. And I can always say, like, that's a great question. Like, find me at the grand tasting and I'll have an answer for you then, Like, I think realizing that it's okay to not always have the answer was big, but I feared that at the beginning and still do sometimes.
But also, doesn't it surprise you in those moments how much you actually do know?
Yes.
That always makes me feel so much smarter than I give myself credit for. Like, I'm like, am I going to be able to handle these questions? And then afterwards, I'm like, of course I could.
Right. Yes. Yeah, when you're like, I killed it, and I didn't have anything I didn't know. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
When did you first feel, it is such a good feeling. When did you first feel successful in your business?
I think there's different levels of feeling successful, like different things. Like, I remember hitting like 10 grand and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm like I'm profitable at this stage, Like, I remember going out for like a glass of wine with a friend when I hit 10 grand, and now looking back, I'm like, wow, like, like that, but that was like a step in the business of like becoming profitable and then, hitting what felt like a big milestone at that point. And then I think, then like starting to do these national events, I think that was like a big, like, all right, like now I'm moving on to the national stage, which I teach all over the country, but to be featured nationally, I think is a whole nother level. And so I think there's been different points of things that felt like very successful. And then you move to the next, then that becomes another goal. And once you hit that one. So those are a few that come to mind, different points where I felt like could tangibly feel like, all right, I feel like I'm killing it,
Yeah.
When is your usual bedtime?
Ooh, that's if I'm trying to be diligent. I like to read at night, so I'll try and turn off my light at 10:30 if I'm being diligent. I work a lot of nights, and I mean, I teach a lot at night, but I also that's when I can get 5 or 6 hours uninterrupted in. So I often work till midnight or so, which is not awesome, but I do. So yes, 10:30 if I'm like on top of it, and if not, more like midnight. I do my best work at night. Nobody needs me.
Oh yeah. That's how I am about early mornings. Sarah is a night owl. She works super late at night. I work super early in the mornings because everybody's still asleep, and I'm like uninterrupted time.
Yes.
Yeah. So what is your best tip for marriage or relationships?
Something that I'm working to practice is knowing that like we're always going to reconcile. My husband and I have been married, I think 8 years now. And so trying to have that mentality of like, I know we're going to reconcile to this, so let's just like speed up the process. I have the tendency to kind of like want to drag it out and like discuss whatever the disagreement is for a very long time. But recognizing like, all right, the end goal is good. Like, we know we're going to reconcile. We know that's the end goal. So let's just like let's like shorten this fight, or let's shorten this disagreement because it's just wasted time at the end of the day. So not like skipping over it, but just trying to get to the goal of like reconciliation and then moving forward versus dragging something out that doesn't need to be drug out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting. Do you have any pets? And if so, what are their names?
I have a dog. His name is Schooner. He's a little white rescue mutt. They told us he was a cockapoo. We don't know if that's true, but he's some kind of hypoallergenic 20-pound furry white dog who's wonderful. Yeah. He used to come everywhere with us pre-kids, and now he stays home all the time, but it's typical. So we love him. He's a good dog. He's a good hiker.
Aww.
Yeah, and he's good with the kids. So that's our
cute.
dog. That's our animal.
What, in your opinion, is the best kept secret to business success?
I think finding your niche, like truly your niche, not like the broad field that you want to work within, but what your exact specialty is. I'd say within my field of wine education, there's other people who do wine tastings and things like that, but that's not my niche. Like, I don't consider them competitors. So like really honing in on like my expertise is making you feel empowered when you go to drink and purchase wine. and that is what I do. And so everything that I do goes within that lens, including the way I structure like my classes, right? They're very interactive. We keep a small head count, and they're education dense. They're not like tasting through wines. You truly like learn about how to pair or different regions or whatever the topic of the class is. But I think honing in on that niche really helps the right clients find you and also lets you serve them really well. So getting narrower, I think sometimes there's the idea, especially when you start, to be very broad and make sure you have I know when I first started, I was doing like a lot of different things in terms of wine, and very quickly realizing like where the competition was, what exactly I wanted to do, and then like narrowing that down and getting rid of I think I've like shed a lot of the services that I used to offer because they don't fit my particular niche. Once I honed in on that niche of really where I wanted to be, it gave me the lens to let everything else go. That wasn't serving my clientele or serving me, but getting narrower. I think a lot of times you're told to like be broad and wide and do lots of things, especially when you're starting, but I did not find that to be helpful necessarily.
Yeah.
I will also say, Sarah, I don't mean to interrupt you, that I have taken one of her classes and they are really fun. They're really, really, really fun. And Drew, my husband, was like so good at it. He was so good at it. He like totally surprised me. He knew so much more. My hunting outdoorsman husband was just like all over it. He was like, oh yeah, you can really taste that at the back of the palate. And I was like, who are you? Like, he was very impressive. Anyways, Kellie is fantastic. It was really fun. Yeah.
If you could donate $100,000 to any cause or charitable organization, where would you donate it?
We love World Vision. We are involved with World Vision. It's an organization that helps kids in underserved and underprivileged countries around the world. And so they work on different stages for communities, but fresh water, child security, like making sure that, they operate where they are safe, education, all different kind of levels based on where that particular group of kids is. But we really love World Vision. So that's where I would give it for sure.
Awesome. We'll make this your last one. If you could give any one specific tip about wine, what would it be?
Good question. Don't be afraid. I think there's a lot of, the wine industry is interesting because a lot of the people who work in wine, their job exists because they know more than you, right? And so like the restaurant floor somm or the person at the wine shop, like they have a job because they know more than you. And so there's this tension in the world of wine that they need to know more than you in order to have a job, right? Like, and so they want there to be a difference between what they know, and it often leads to a lot of pretension in wine. And I think it leads on the other side for the consumer to a lot of fear, like, okay, I'm going to do this wrong, right? And I would say, like, you're not doing it wrong. Like, you can't do it wrong. I mean, sure, you can like mess up a pairing or something, but like at the end of the day, it just means it doesn't taste as good in your mouth. Like, no one's getting hurt, like nothing bad is happening. And so I think the faster people can get comfortable with like, nothing bad is going to happen if I don't make the exact correct choice, the more you'll venture out, try different bottles, try different regions, try different producers. You'll be willing to try new stuff. And that's how you discover new favorites. You discover things that do work for pairings. But I think not being afraid and just being willing to try new things and be a little bit more adventurous goes a long way in the world of wine. That fear doesn't need to exist, but there's a reason for it, but it doesn't need to exist. So that would be my best tip.
So good. That's so good. You did it. You completed all of your questions. You were absolutely wonderful. Sarah, tell them all the things I need to know.
Yeah, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We have new videos every Wednesday to introduce you to all our cool friends in business doing cool things like this. And you can get all of Kellie's information in the description box down below. And we will see you next week.
See you soon.